What happens to a brilliant person in politics, especially when he falls? It's very it's a huge premonition also probably on the part of Narasimha Rao. Look at what he writes. But the fall of a brilliant one, friend or foe, gives rise to a subtle, indescribable ripple of joy in many human hearts. And this is especially evident in the political field. That's how he looks.
After demitting office also, I used to meet him regularly. He used to come here to Hyderabad and we used to meet at Raj Bhavan. We used to stay at Raj Bhavan. I and Puttur Venkateswara Garu and MS Kos Vijay Kumar, and we were very frequently going to him. And I asked him many times about the cases.
He said, कोई कहता है मैंने मुर्गी चुराई, कोई कहता है मुर्गी के अंडे, लेकिन सब कहते हैं चोर तो मैं हूँ ही, which was said sort of like a joke.
See, all these cases, which were foisted on him, they were lodged after he demitted the office. He used to tell us in our private conversations that you don't worry about these cases because such things do happen. It happened earlier in the case of Madam Gandhi also, in 1977. All sorts of flimsy, unsubstantiated cases were foisted against her.
Once he told me, Murthy Garu, when Indira Gandhi was arrested and when she was being taken to Tihar jail, he abruptly stopped the car and sat near a culvert. Then it was I and other friends who called the media and made it a big issue in those days. But who will call for me? Who will call the media if I do something like that? Who is there behind me? Nobody.
Because he did not believe in cultivating a large number of his own personal followers. And whatever he said, they would say yes. And whatever he did, they would say yes. And whichever party he was in, they would say yes. That's not what he believed in.
So he was a loner for that matter. He was an intellectual of high order. He was a good politician. He was a very good administrator. But he is not a mass leader like Indira Gandhi or not even Chennai Reddy. He was a very good politician. So he could not defend himself. And there was nobody to defend him.
While he was fighting the cases in the courts, he thought that he should not go to the court as a Congress president. That was one of the main reasons why he took this decision of resigning as Congress president.
I think it was a blunder. In retrospect, that was a tragedy, perhaps for the Congress party and the country. Because of some noises here and there, he thought that he would keep control of the country's destiny and economic reform process to which he was dedicated. He was wedded. By retaining leadership of the parliamentary party, he thought that was more important as opposition leader and parliamentary party leader. And he thought, to his own loyal lieutenants, if he gave the party control, then he can serve the country's interests better. I think he genuinely believed that. And when Devagowda was the Prime Minister, Mr. Devagowda was openly soliciting his advice and was continuing the economic reform process, you must remember.
He was never asking for being in power. He was quite recluse. He's a very Telangana person, let me tell you. In the sense that if I'm a PM, it's okay. If I'm not a PM also, it's okay. Adi Telangana aite aitadi lekuttu ledu. It's a very, very typical characteristic of Telangana. That you're happy to be with what you are.
He was happy with himself. There's no work to read and write. There's work is to attend the work. As a politician, as a human being, he is of that sort. If he has nothing to do, he can write a book.
He was mostly doing his writing, reading, and learning new languages. His Insider One, which was published, he did a lot of work on that during that time.
Well, so this is a brilliant book. In order to understand Narasimha Rao, one must read Inside. not only to understand Narasimha, but if you want to understand the long journey of India's political economy, you must read Inside.
I always say, Insider is not a story of P.V. Narasimha Rao. Insider is a story of P.V. Narasimha Rao. It is a presentation of a contemporary history in a different canvas.
Anand is, by and large, an alter ego of Narasimha Rao. But here, look at the way he's looking at the people in the political system. These were a few out of a legion, an incredible mosaic of humanity, each a different mix of hues from all the others. None of them was jet black, nor was anyone snow white. None of them was jet black, nor anyone was snow white. Grey was the predominant shade of their characters, their personalities, a kaleidoscope of diversity. The common motivation, mark these words, the common motivation, power. The common point of unity, self. That was the game, by whatever name you chose to call it.
So I have had the varied experience of being a journalist, being a poet, being a writer, learning languages, just for nothing, no great utility, but because one has a flair for it. Then making comparisons, then suddenly into politics. Not so sudden, but it's part of the interest that grew with time. So all these things have inhered in me, remained in me together, jostling against one another, but still having some kind of harmonious effect on my personality.
And you'll be surprised to know that every day, morning and evening, enjoyed playing the keyboard, so much so that by the end of 3 years, towards the end of 2004, yeah, he developed so much of expertise in that. He said, I'm now ready for a concert.
But somehow, ironically, wherever I go for any other occasion, people only ask me about politics. So, where I want to avoid that particular subject, not because I don't like it, having been in it for 60 years, there is no question of my making any judgment about it. But the point is, one wants a diversion which is inherent in the personality, and therefore one feels like going into those aspects, misses those aspects otherwise.
I think that must be understood about Narasimha Rao. He all through was a person who learned things and who experimented things, and he read poetry, he translated, and you will see him very frequently, used to see him very frequently in Kamani Auditorium, in Sriram Center. When there was a music concert, there was a play, there was a ballet, you'll see Narasimha.
While he was fully prepared to take on these cases, what he was not prepared was, lawyer's fees. He never thought it would cost so much.
He did not amass wealth.
He had to sell the house here in Hyderabad to pay for lawyer.
He could have fought, if he wanted to, he could have amassed so much of wealth that he could have fought such legal battles, not only in India, but in 10 different countries and even in the International Court of Justice.
The family we offered, we said, we are there, we will take care of that. But his self-respect, we did not allow that to happen, you see.
And I'm sure he was very stressed about hiring the lawyers, paying their fees.
He didn't want to take money from us. So he always wanted to, settle it himself, and his main idea was he should not die, in debts.
Unfortunately, Sitaram Kesari, whom Mr. Narasimha Rao has chosen, he proved to be a man without any deep understanding of India's needs. And he humiliated Mr. Narasimha Rao and forced him to resign also from the party leadership in the parliamentary party.
Here was a Congress politician, an average Congress politician, who started his life in the Congress party, who served the Congress party loyally, and at the end of it gave 5 years of power. Now, I have used that phrase deliberately when I say he gave 5 years of power to his party. What I am saying is he has given 5 years of opportunity to be in office to a lot of congressmen. So a lot of people benefited from those 5 years. So you would expect many of them to be grateful. You would think that they would say, look, I got this 5 years as a union minister. I was able to survive for these 5 years as a chief minister because Narasimha Rao stabilized the Congress party in Delhi. Instead of that, what did they end up saying? This man is responsible for Babri Masjid.
But he never complained to anybody, never. They all kept to himself.
I'm sure they were volcanoes erupting within. But that man never betrayed any of those feelings of anger, anguish, or slighted. No. He composed.
In your general conversations, did he ever show regret or anger towards all those people?
No. I tell you something. I have never seen Narasimha Rao saying a harsh word about his opponents, ever. Not even in private conversations. I have never heard him raise his voice. I have never seen him, in the common parlance you say, get mad, get very angry. I've never seen. I don't know how that's possible.
I will stay in the hospital, I think, another 3-4 days, because I don't want to take any risk again by going and having the same thing coming again. It's nothing serious, but it makes you so weak. You are no good for quite some days. You can't even walk briskly. I don't know why this infection has suddenly attacked me.
I think the kind of stressful situations that he went through after 96, I think it probably had taken a toll on his health too.
He was admitted into the hospital, I think 23rd, 24th of November.
I had seen him when he was in hospital. I prefer not to remember because I had seen him from my childhood. I had seen him healthy. I had seen him with chubby face. In fact, I remember him with a full head of hair also. When he was a small child. He looked shriveled.
Doctors, they wanted to try out a new drug on him because they thought that that's one drug which would be very effective. but they had forewarned also the family that there could be some side effects. So when the medicine was administered, as expected, there were some side effects. And one of the side effects was that he has grown very obstinate. That morning, from 11 o'clock onwards, he would say, I would not eat, nor I would drink. Enough is enough.
In the hospital, I'm remembering only now, after that, because I chose to push it somewhere into some corner of my life. Remember those things. Very sad. I wish to be weak, small, thin. He was not a big man, but you never got a feeling that he was sinking. But at that time, it was very evident.
Shivraj Patil, along with Ahmed Patel and Sonia ji herself, they arrived at the hospital around 9:30. And when Ms. Narasimha Rao saw them, I think probably his past memories got triggered. And, he was telling them that, the decisions, whatever be, they are taken based on certain inputs which are provided at that point of time. And the collective intelligence of the cabinet, it is never taken, unilaterally. It was done in consultation with people. So some may be very successful. Decisions may bring a lot of benefits. Some may not be that successful. To appropriate, decisions which are successful to the account, their account, others' accounts, and isolate the person when the decision goes wrong, and persecute him. That is not fair. He was trying to explain it to him, to all of them, in this tone and tenor, and it went on for 2-3 hours. And I think they left around 1 o'clock in the night. Suddenly, one of the very senior leaders, Congress party, they took me aside and said, where will you do the cremation? Would you like to do it in Delhi or in Hyderabad? And I would suggest it is done in Hyderabad. I was really taken aback to see how a person could talk to his son about his father's funeral when he's still alive. After that incident, Narasimha Rao came back to senses. He survived the attack, and 16th, I think, when he said, look, I am a very satisfied man. I've really done whatever I wanted to do in my life. And now is the time I should leave this world. My father, is calling me. He's dressed up in a white clad, walking on a tank burn in Mangara. He's waving at me. He's calling me. This is the time I must now leave this world. I don't prolong this any further. And while he was saying this, an hour later or so, he collapsed and then never to return. 23rd, they tried their best until, but he didn't return. And 23rd, breathed his last.
वो सब स्मृतियाँ, वो सब यादें कभी कभी आती हैं, लेकिन फिर इसके साथ साथ लगता है कि ये कैसी तब्दीली आ गई। अब तक कुछ पता ही नहीं चला। बिल्कुल पता नहीं चला कि ये सब तब्दीली आ रही है, क्योंकि हम इसके एक भाग थे। इस तब्दीली का हिस्सा बनकर हमने इन सारी चीज़ों को महसूस किया, अनुभव किया। देश बदल गया, दुनिया बदल गई, हम बदल गए। कभी कभी लगता है कि कुछ कहूं, सबको लगता होगा। प्रत्येक व्यक्ति का जीवन एक बहुत बड़ा इतिहास, लंबा इतिहास होता है। पीछे मुड़कर कुछ लोग देखते हैं, कुछ लोग शायद नहीं देखते, लेकिन जो भी देखते हैं ये इतिहास उनके सामने आ जाता है।
You know, it so happens that you hear about deaths of a lot of people. But somebody died. But you never expect somebody who is so dear to you would ever die. So I never expected, I never thought Narasimha Rao would go away.
We miss politicians like that. There's no doubt on it. Who can take a stand?
There are two types of leaders. One leader who makes everybody do what he wants. P.V. Narasimha Rao enabled everybody to do what they want, by himself not concentrating everything.
You know, he did not wear power on his sleeve. He was avuncular. He was like an uncle. He was like an elderly man, a fatherly figure, an uncle like a person. Not just to me, to everybody.
Like any old Congress person, very open, very accessible and grand.
Even while I was in opposition, he used to be fond of me. But I never spared him, even as Prime Minister. On Babri Mosque also, I mounted severe attack on him on record, to his face. But yet he never took it personally.
History creates circumstances, and then there are individuals who take advantage of those circumstances. So the reforms would have happened anyway. Certainly they would have happened anyway, sooner or later. But I don't think we should deny the credit to the individuals who saw the opportunity and took a stand.
When I first wrote about Narasimha Rao being the architect of reforms, till then nobody had actually said it in so many words. And I felt the heat of that decision of mine to say that.
His party has, in fact, worked extra hard at making him a forgotten Prime Minister. So even for economic reform, we remember Manmohan Singh, but not Narasimha Rao.
They used Babri Masjid to hang him politically. They put the entire blame on one man and then clean themselves. Okay, he is to blame, all of us are pure, he is untouchable. That is what they did to him. And literally on the day of his death, they did not allow the body to enter the party.
A Prime Minister, till then, all of them found place, and even lesser mortals also found place in Delhi as their resting place. He didn't find. He was brought to Hyderabad. And of course, it's very unpleasant to talk about, how the funeral took place and all that. But it's there for everybody to see. He did not deserve that kind of a treatment.
His bank balance when he died in 2004 was 1,40,000 rupees. And 40,000 rupees was a cash in his house in Motilal. So it shows the person's priorities.
What is the difference between PV and other politicians? PV never encouraged the children to become politicians. Rangarao became an MLC in spite of discouragement from TV.
I did not get a fancy posting when I left the PMO, but I was quite happy to have come away with what I learned through this person.
Even after Babri Masjid, I would still think he was secular.
He will go down in the chapter of the annals of history as one of the most enigmatic prime ministers that we had.
I think he was the best we have ever had. Definitely. He knew how to get along with the opposition. He knew how to compromise. He knew how to be firm also. He was a scholar politician.
Highly scholarly person. He had a very powerful intellect. And he was a thinker. No other prime minister has been a thinker, but he was the only one who was a thinker.
Some leaders, thinkers, philosophers, writers, in whatever field they are, some achieve instant success during their time, and they see all the glory. For some, with time, their glory is enhanced. History magnifies their contribution.
He will be remembered as the builder of modern India. Definitely he will be. Just like Sardar Patel is the political builder of modern India, he will be remembered as the economic builder of modern India.
His main legacy was to show that a person who is erudite, who is learned, who is modest, who is diligent, who is dedicated, who is patriotic, can still be a successful politician.
People might have slighted him, people might have humiliated him, but history will not. In fact, history will not remember all those people who slighted him and all those people who humiliated him, but history will remember him, not his humiliators, not his detractors, not the people who insulted him. That's the place of Narasimha.